Welcome to the Workforce Connections podcast, where we discuss workforce development in Southern Nevada. Here's your host.
Hi, and welcome to the WC podcast, where we explore workforce development issues in Southern Nevada. My name is Jaime Cruz. I am your host for today, and I am glad to introduce not only a member of the Workforce Connections board, but actually the person who had the idea for this podcast. So today with us, we are happy to have Jack Martin, the director of the Clark County Juvenile Justice System. Jack, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Director Cruz. It's incredible to be here.
Well, I want you to share a little bit with the folks listening. What was it that made you think that we could pull this off and say, you know what, I'm going to tell that WC staff that we need to start a podcast?
I think there's quite a few reasons here. First of all, Jaime, the transformation of the workforce system in Southern Nevada over the last few years has been phenomenal. From being at one of the probably, I don't want to say one of the worst workforce boards, but for not being recognized nationally to being a nationally recognized board that is doing some very innovative things, and being a fan of podcasts. I mean, I listen to podcasts regularly. I also know how dynamic a speaker you are, Jaime, and how you could enthrall the millions of fans that will be watching. I thought, what better way to share our story, our mission, our vision in a way that other people could maybe learn from.
Yeah, and we're grateful. I didn't know what podcast was until you told me. So I'm grateful now that we have our own. And again, hopefully you are, obviously this is our inaugural episode, our first guest, and we already have a few more scheduled. We're officially going to launch this just in a few weeks. And so the folks listening will have if you will, a few episodes to listen to, and then we plan to add a few more every week, every month. So let me ask you a little bit about this evolution you mentioned. Over the last few years, we went from, as you said, a board that was perhaps doing good work to a board that's doing incredible work now. And, if you will, it's great that we get national recognition, because last year we got that recognition from the National Association of Workforce Boards. But I think the best part is what we see every day in the system. You and I traveled the other Saturday across some locations, and we really see the impact that our efforts are having here. So tell us a little bit about that journey. What made you really come back from DC one time and say, we got to get better at integration. We got to get all the partners involved. We got to get the board members activated. And so tell us a little bit about that journey and what that meant to you.
I'll be honest, Jaime, this has not been an easy road, which you're well aware of. I mean, this is when I remember my first couple of meetings on the board. They were contentious meetings. There was anger amongst board members. There was, and just looking at it from just a business perspective, you're looking at 30 to 35% of our budget was being pulled into administrative costs, which was, first of all, against DETR rules, or my understanding, and also just inefficient. We had contracts all throughout the valley going to little small organizations, which is not a bad thing, but we weren't getting the results we needed. And it was obvious. It was painfully obvious. We had pink papers, or these, whatever what is the official term for a pink paper? I can't remember. From the board, we've nicknamed them the pink papers.
Right. It's early monitoring.
Yes, the early monitoring. I mean, that's all we were discussing at board meetings was early monitoring. And it just wasn't, it didn't seem effective. It didn't seem like we were investing the money that we could have invested into the actual workforce to the people that need it the most. So it was, I was invited to a NOB conference. It was at National Association of Workforce Boards conference. I got to go there, and you know me, I nerd out on things like this. So I went to as many conference, or breakout sessions as I could. And there was one about integration. And we had just started our harbor model. Our harbor is a juvenile assessment center model that we use in juvenile justice, where we'd gotten 14 partners to sit down and commit to doing real work and working with each other. And I said, why wouldn't this work at Workforce? And I remember coming to you and Rick specifically and saying, why don't we work with DETR? And there was all this historical conversations. And then I said, well, I'm going to go meet with them. And I remember you and Rick kind of rolling your eyes at me going, okay, that'll go well. Right. And it didn't go great, but it got better. I mean, we started the conversation of, hey, we're in our lane. You guys are in your lane. How can we work together better instead of duplicating services? So, I mean, under your leadership and under the board's leadership of our past president, our past chairwoman, Valerie Merzel, and now our new chair, I mean, we're seeing some incredible things move, and I can't tell you, I'm excited because these have not been always popular decisions. They have not always been, ballyhooed decisions, but they've been decisions that needed to be made. And now we're starting to see the data. We're looking 15 months, 2 years into this data. We're seeing incredible growth. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important. The decisions that were made were difficult ones by the board, by the LEOs, but the data, despite the pandemic, the data has validated those decisions. The services are better, they're more impactful, they're more broad. And so I think that's what matters, that the decisions have now been validated by the outcomes.
But not only that, Jaime, I think there's been something that gets lost in here. And I mean, that's your decision making. You've made some tough decisions from the executive director standpoint. And I've always, been supportive of, 99.9% of those decisions. But, scaling back our internal staff so we'd have more money to reinvest. We saw firsthand during this pandemic how that couple $1 million that was saved was able to be reinvested directly into our community, whether it be through the paycheck protection programs or whether it be through expanding of the one-stops, whether it be through just creative pilot programming that you wanted to try and during a national emergency, we had the flexibility to move around and navigate those places because of the decisions we'd made. And I don't think people understand that because we don't contextualize it for them, and they're difficult conversations to have at a board meeting. But those decisions have paid off. There's small businesses that are open today, and people will continue to receive paychecks during a national pandemic or a worldwide pandemic, not just didn't affect us. I mean, that wouldn't have happened if we didn't make very intentional decisions around our population matters, and that making those tough decisions, it made sense and it's paying off. And I hope we discuss this at board meetings. I know I'm always pushing for the data to come out and just discuss this data because we'd heard some really tough public comment on, race-based decision making and accusing the board of some things. And, now we're seeing, well, that's not true at all. We're actually serving more young people of color. We're serving more people in impoverished neighborhoods than we ever have historically. And the data's proven that out. So, we could have turtled up and been afraid of these conversations, but we didn't.
Yeah. And I think besides the outcomes of participants and how they're served, as you said, one of the most important things we did was get our internal budget in line because we're spending, if you will, above the operational average for the nation. And so I'm happy to say now here as a board, we are definitely on the lower end of the national average. The national average is 15 to 20% spent on board operations, and we've been under 15 now for the last 18 months. So and again, as you said, what do we do with that money? We just we don't keep it. We reinvest it into the system to serve more job seekers and more businesses. So yes, those are things I think that we can be really proud of as an organization. You mentioned the harbor, and I think those listening to understand a little bit more about why is it that the combination of those two systems, the harbor system that you mentioned, has partners that bring resources that are not the same as the partners and resources in our system. And so, it's almost like a Thanksgiving dinner, right? Where somebody brings turkey, the other person brings side dishes. And so when we traveled and toured the harbor, there's stuff inside the harbor that can benefit our youth that we can't provide. Can you tell us a little bit about what those things are and why it's important to merge these systems together?
Well, absolutely. And first of all, you know me and my passion for the harbor. I mean, I can talk about the harbor until the cows come home. And it is, for people that don't know, it's a juvenile assessment center. It's not anything new, unique, or crazy. It is just something that we did very well here in Clark County. We got 14 partners to sit to the table. One of those partners is workforce. And it's for children. We designed it specifically for children of color because in my juvenile justice system and law enforcement fields, we see far too many children of color captured in systems that they don't belong in for a multitude of reasons. The school to prison pipeline, lack of resources, bold-faced racism. There's lots of reasons. But what we also understand in juvenile justice is that the earlier we serve a child, the earlier we wrap a child in meaningful resources, the better outcomes are. As much as I'd love to tell everybody that my probation system is incredible, it's not. There's not a good probation system. They just don't exist. I mean, do my 600 men and women that work for me do incredible work? They absolutely do. But by the time a child makes it to probation, we've lost a lot of the fight. So we want to do very intentional upstream investment. And we also know that when kids come and they're having behavioral issues, they're having school issues, they're having mental health issues, drug-related issues, they're having all those issues don't occur in a vacuum for children. Those issues occur across a multitude of service delivery things, to include unemployment, underemployment. So one of the things we wanted to do is we reached out, and obviously me and you are friends away from this place, and we I have been on your board for several years. We started talking about ways that we could improve services at the harbor, also reduce some of the costs for you guys in workforce in terms of co-locating some resources there. I'm so pumped about it because if one of my families comes in from a juvenile justice perspective, and they and workforce is embedded into our culture, into our buildings, into our everything. Well, mom and dad might be sitting there while we're waiting to do an evaluation for the kid. Maybe they need retraining or upskilling or employment services or soft skills development. All can be happening right there. If a kid comes in, or likewise, if a kid comes in specifically looking for Title I supports through your organization, but yet they do have an alcohol problem, or maybe they do have they need tutoring issues, or maybe they do need, shoes or clothes or, other things. We have now created literally a no wrong door approach to serving our community, to include employment.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people throw this term around, multi-generational approach, right? Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what you just described. And I think our Commissioner Marilyn Kirkpatrick's have been a big fan of that, of embedding these resources in tiers into a place where the families can get served, not just the young people, but the adults. And so I'm excited as well that we are going to be able to be in a place, provide services to youth in a place that, again, provides things we don't. You talked about resources for emotional, problems that are happening in the home, drug problems, housing. And so those things, I think, are part of the reality of the youth that come seeking our services. But sometimes the first thing that is needed is not that training for a job. There's other things that need to be remediated first. And so I think that's why the partnership with the Harbor makes so much sense. Moving forward, tell us, I'd like to hear again, you've seen us evolve, and we've talked about what that evolution has entailed a little bit. What do you see in the next couple of years post-pandemic? The pandemic really has reshaped how job seekers look at the workforce and what they expect in the workplace. A lot of it is still a little bit unknown. It's working its way out, if you will. We have a strategic planning event coming up for the board and the LEOs in a few months. What are the things that in your mind are going to be on the table that you want to see the board address and tackle in the future?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. First of all, it's this youth integration system, right? Standing up real resources and being very intentional in the populations that we seek, whether it be juvenile justice kids aging out of juvenile justice or foster children aging out of foster care systems, really working collaboratively there. But I think more importantly, is you guys have pounded into my head, is really building those employer-first relationships, right? Really working backwards from the solution. I mean, you and LVGEA and a lot of our partners in this workforce space have done some incredible work around the blueprint. I think we're on version 3.0 now, where guys like me understand. I mean, in the past, not to go backwards again, but I remember sitting at a board meeting and watching a training where we'd actually looked at some training for pet massage. And I thought to myself, okay, that might be something that is needed. It might be, but is it needed here in Vegas? Was it so if we train people in this, could they actually find a job? Was it a livable wage? Was it all those things? And I would argue that it probably is, there might be a need for it, but not on the scale that we need to get people back in the workforce. So really looking at all of those elements of like building those employer-first relationships, building training to meet their needs, right? I mean, you've done an incredible job. You and our Madam Chair and our Vice Chair have done an incredible job putting together real relationships. I mean, we've got the president of our local CSN, College of Southern Nevada, on our board. We've got the superintendent of the fifth largest school district in the country on our board. We've got, employers. I mean, Guy Martin and his team. And we've got, I hate to leave anybody out, but we've got incredible board now that has the ability to move mountains. When we started this small little pilot program of exposing my children to an actual construction work site, Mr. Martin was on board 100%. We had a YAP, which is one of our service providers, Youth Advocate Program, on board. And then we developed a curriculum in almost felt like overnight, but it was probably a little longer than that. And thanks to your team for helping us build it. But those are the types of partnerships that we need to be building in all economic sectors of our advanced manufacturing. That should be our next goal, right? Or any logistics or any of these things that we could be doing. I mean, I'm really excited about the direction the board is going, and not only that, but the people that are on the board that are doers. I don't think we have a whole lot of people left on the board that just want to write it on their resumes anymore. I think we've got some people that actually want to move mountains, and I think that's what a great place for us to be.
I agree. I'm really grateful for that, because the Local Elected Officials Consortium, the 8 local electeds that govern our agency and are responsible for the fiduciary, spending, if you will, here, that everything is spent the right way. They have appointed, as you said, an amazing board. We have 23 board members now that are actively engaged, that are bringing resources into the system, right? The WIOA says that a board member must bring, not only have hiring authority in their organization and optimum policy making authority, but they also should bring resources to the table. And that's happening. We see that in the form of cash. We see that in the form of resources from their organizations. We see that in the form of connections or partnerships. And so, yes, I agree. I think we are fortunate to be flying at the highest altitude. And I agree with you that our goal now is obviously not to go down, to the contrary, to maybe rise up even higher. So I'm looking forward to that strategic planning event to really lay the direction for the next few years. So, Jack, we've kind of reached the end of our time, so I wanted to give you one last chance to maybe share some final thoughts with us, say goodbye to our audience before we end the segment.
No, I'm just excited about the things that we're doing. Hopefully, if there's other workforce boards or board members that are out there that find this podcast interesting, come visit us. Come say hello. I think sitting down with us and really understanding the obstacles that we faced are not going to be very different than the obstacles other boards are facing, and that I think we can offer some supports. I've had several phone calls with other NOB after the last NOB conference from other board executive directors and board members about some of the things we've done, and all they wanted was like some tactical advice about how do they navigate this certain spot. And I'm lucky enough to be dumb enough to just ask questions on the regular, right? I'll just ask the question, and hopefully it doesn't offend anybody, but if it does, it's really an honest question about how do we get better. And we've been very fortunate, and we've been very supported here. Our elected officials have been incredible partners in this process of transformation. And I can't tell you enough. This board has just been exciting. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, Jack, we're lucky, we're blessed and fortunate to have you on our board, because you have, if you will, catalyzed our work for a few years now. Hopefully you see the impact that has, not just on young adults, children, but the adults as well that we serve. Thank you for making the time to come talk to us today. And we hope that you will join us again. So that's it for today's podcast. We hope you join us again. And until next time, stay safe. Okay, so Jack, thank you for staying over for our bonus segments. And we're going to start with the first one, which is called Your Favorites. So I'm going to give you a few categories, and you're going to list your favorite one. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, your favorite motorcycle.
Harley Davidson.
Your favorite car.
Chevrolet.
Your favorite food.
Tacos.
Your favorite book.
I'm reading one right now called My Grandmother's Hands.
Your favorite sport to watch.
Wrestling.
Your favorite football team.
The USC Trojans.
Your favorite hockey team.
The Golden Knights.
Your favorite musical artist or group.
ZZ Top.
Your favorite city to visit.
Phoenix.
All right.
Yeah, I got to answer that one because that's where my wife and kids live.
Right.
So,
right.
You try to set me up right there.
Shout out to home. Very good.
That's wrong.
You did well with the first segment. The second bonus segment is called Tough Choices. Are you ready?
I am, unless you ask me my favorite city to visit. Shitty. again.
This one's going to be tough. That's why it's called Tough Choices. All right, here's your option for lunch. Dirty Bird sandwich or hot link sandwich?
Hot link sandwich.
Riding motorcycles or cruising in a Cadillac?
Motorcycles.
Travel by car or by plane?
Car.
Wrenching in the garage or outdoors cooking meats?
Wrenching in the garage.
Peru chicken or mojarra loca?
La mojada loca.
Oh, that's the wrong answer.
That is the best answer.
Okay.
That is the best answer.
All
That
right.
molcajete is something to hurt somebody over.
Working remote or in the office?
In the office.
Justice or grace?
Oh, I need grace.
Actions
I don't-
or words?
I don't need a deal, sir. I don't.
Right.
I don't need justice. I need a deal.
I hear you.
Right?
Actions or words?
Actions.
Very good. That was the second segment, and we're rounding the finish line here. The last segment is called Finish the Sentence. Are you ready?
No.
I'll give you a breather there.
All
right, here we go.
Okay, I'm ready.
Some of Jack's hobbies and interests are
Motorcycle riding, reading, working on cars and hot rods, spending time with my children and my wife.
very nice. Jack's perfect weekend is
Cookout with my family, riding on my Harley with my wife, getting to spend time with my sons, working on cars, and potentially watching like a UFC or a boxing match on late night.
the best part of living in Southern Nevada is
Being friends with Jaime Cruz,
happiness is
my wife.
if
Was that a good answer?
Yes,
honey? Was that a good answer, honey?
Very good one. She's going to be very
I hope
very
so.
proud.
I hope so.
If Jack could rewind time, he would
He would probably not move to Hawaii.
Wow. Here it is, the last one. Doing this WC podcast was
Incredible.
awesome. All right, Jack. Well, we appreciate you. You made it through all of the rapid fire sequence. Thank you for staying and doing the bonus segment.
Thank you for having me.